The message came on a Tuesday. It was a clear signal from deep space that made every radio telescope on Earth light up at once. At first, the scientists thought it was a mistake. Then they realized the truth. Aliens were real, and they were talking to us. Dr. Alan Wright was eating a sandwich in his office at NASA when the call came in. He dropped everything and ran to the control room. The Deep Space Array in Nevada had picked up something unlike anything they had ever seen before. "This pattern is too perfect," Alan told his team as they gathered around the screens. "This is not random. This is not natural." For 3 days, Alan barely slept. He worked with Dr. Lisa Monroe, the best linguist the government could find. Lisa had learned 6 languages by the time she was 20, and now she faced her biggest challenge, an alien one. "It's mathematical," Lisa said, pointing to the repeating sequences. "They're using prime numbers as a foundation. It's a universal language." 6 months later, they had their answer. The aliens called themselves the Zentari. They were an advanced spacefaring civilization that had been watching Earth for decades. Now they wanted to meet. The world held its breath as the massive Zentari mothership entered Earth's atmosphere. It was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. It hung in the sky over the Atlantic Ocean, dark and silent. Captain Natalie Freeman adjusted her uniform as she prepared to meet the aliens. As the top pilot in the U.S. Space Force, she had been chosen as the military representative for this historic meeting. She stood beside Ambassador William Garcia on the landing pad as the alien shuttle descended. "Remember," Garcia whispered, "we'd represent all of humanity now." The first Zentari to step onto Earth's soil was Commander Vrax. The alien stood 7 feet tall with gray-blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. 4 arms emerged from a torso covered in what looked like natural armor. Its eyes, 3 of them, blinked independently as it surveyed the humans. "Greetings, Earth inhabitants," the alien said through a translation device. Its voice sounded metallic and flat. "We have come to establish relations with your developing world." Over the next few weeks, the Zentari met with leaders from around the globe. They offered trade deals and technological exchange. But behind closed doors, they were not as friendly as they seemed in public. During one meeting at the United Nations, Commander Vrax examined a tablet computer that Garcia handed him. The alien turned it over in his hands and made a sound that the translators identified as laughter. "You still use physical interfaces for your computing and silicon-based processors." Vrax handed the tablet back. "We abandoned such primitive technology thousands of years ago." Garcia kept his face neutral, but Captain Freeman noticed his jaw tighten. "We appreciate any guidance your civilization can offer," Garcia said carefully. Vrax made that strange laughing sound again. "Your species is quaint, like watching children discover fire. We will help you advance beyond your current limitations." Despite the condescension, Earth's nations agreed to the Zentari proposals. The promise of advanced medicine, clean energy, and faster-than-light travel technology was too good to pass up. What Earth didn't know was that the Zentari were merely scouts for something much larger and more dangerous: the Galactic Hegemony, an alliance of species that systematically conquered lesser civilizations. As the deal was signed, Captain Freeman stood in the back of the room. She watched Commander Vrax carefully. The alien's middle eye kept blinking rapidly as he spoke about peace and cooperation. "I don't trust them," she whispered to Alan Wright, who stood beside her. "Neither do I," the scientist replied. "But we need what they're offering." As the Zentari returned to their ship that night, Earth celebrated what everyone called a new era for humanity. But in the darkness of space, more ships were already on their way. The Zentari had found their next target, and Earth had no idea what was coming. 1 year after the Zentari arrived, strange things began to happen. The power went out in New York City for 6 hours. No one could explain why. 3 days later, Chicago lost all internet connection for an entire day. The next week, the air traffic control systems in Los Angeles stopped working for 20 minutes. Kevin Harris noticed the pattern before anyone else. He sat in his small apartment, surrounded by computer screens. As a former Marine who now worked in cybersecurity, he had a knack for seeing things others missed. "It's not random," he muttered to himself as he mapped the incidents. "These are tests. Someone is testing our systems." Kevin called his former boss, Major Samantha Powell. She was one of the few people who would listen to his theories without calling him crazy. "I need to show you something," he told her. "It's about the aliens." They met at a diner outside of town. Kevin brought his laptop and showed her the map he had created. "Look at the timing," he said, pointing to his screen. "Each failure happens exactly 72 hours after a Zentari trade ship delivers new equipment to that city." Samantha studied the pattern. Her eyes narrowed. "Those new communication devices they gave us," she said slowly. "What if they're more than just phones?" Over the next week, they quietly gathered a team. Dr. Eric Mason had worked on military technology his whole life. Dr. Olivia Chen was an expert in alien biology and technology. Together, they took apart one of the Zentari devices in a shielded lab. What they found confirmed their fears. Hidden inside each piece of alien technology was a small transmitter. These transmitters were mapping Earth's power grids, communication networks, and defense systems. "They're preparing for something," Eric said, looking up from his microscope. "This isn't trade. This is reconnaissance." When Samantha brought their findings to her superiors, they arranged a meeting with the Zentari. Commander Vrax met them in the special embassy that had been built for the aliens. "These devices are sending unauthorized data back to your ships," Samantha said, placing the evidence on the table. Vrax's 3 eyes blinked in that strange pattern they had come to recognize as amusement. "Of course they are," the alien said. "How else would we monitor their performance? Your understanding of quantum technology is so limited. These are simple diagnostic tools." "These are spying devices," Samantha insisted. Vrax stood up. He was almost 2 feet taller than any human in the room. "Let me be clear," the alien said. "Your most advanced technology is like stone tools to us. We monitor your systems the same way you might monitor a child learning to walk. It is for your own protection." The next day, Vrax requested a special session at the United Nations. There, he demonstrated Zentari weapons technology. With a small device that fit in one of his 4 hands, he disabled a tank that had been brought into the building. "This is a simple teaching tool for Zentari children," Vrax explained as the tank's engines died and its electronics failed. "Your most deadly weapons are toys compared to what exists among the stars." The room fell silent. The message was clear. Earth could not fight the Zentari if they decided to turn hostile. What Vrax didn't know was that Kevin, Samantha, Eric, and Olivia were not the only ones who had discovered the truth. All over the world, small groups of scientists and soldiers had been secretly studying the alien technology. In an underground lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Mason carefully removed a piece of alien metal from its casing. "They think we only understand how to make bombs and bullets," he told Olivia as they worked. "They have no idea what we've really been developing all these years." Olivia nodded. "Should we tell the government what we found?" Eric looked at the strange metal that seemed to change color as he moved it. "Not yet," he said. "If the Zentari are watching us as closely as we think, we need to keep playing dumb. For now, let them think their Stone Age comet was accurate." Meanwhile, in deep space, more Zentari ships were approaching Earth. But these weren't trade vessels. They were warships. The Hegemony fleet arrived at dawn. One moment the skies were clear, and the next, massive ships filled the horizon. They were different from the Zentari vessels. Darker, larger, covered in what looked like weapons. People around the world looked up and knew this was not a peaceful visit. All TV channels, radio stations, and internet services suddenly showed the same message. A new alien appeared on screens everywhere. This one had red skin with black markings and 6 eyes arranged in a circle around its head. "People of Earth," the alien said, I am Admiral Zex of the Galactic Hegemony. Your planet is now under our protection. Resistance is both futile and unnecessary. In the White House Situation Room, world leaders gathered via video conference. The President of the United States looked grim. "What are our options?" she asked. General Frank Russo, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, shook his head. "We've prepared our best defenses, but based on what we've seen of their technology, our weapons may not be effective." "We have to try," the President said. Within hours, fighter jets from countries around the world took to the skies. Navy vessels moved into position. Missile systems were armed and aimed at the alien ships. Earth fought back with everything it had. Missiles launched. Fighter jets engaged. For a brief moment, it seemed like humanity might have a chance. Then everything changed. The missiles stopped in midair, hundreds of feet from the alien ships. They simply hung there, suspended, before falling harmlessly to the ground or into the ocean. Fighter jets lost power, their electronics dead. The pilots had to eject as their aircraft dropped from the sky. On the ground, tanks and artillery fell silent as their systems shut down. Admiral Zex appeared on screens again. "Your weapons are primitive. Your resistance is over. We will now begin the occupation." Huge energy shields appeared over major cities around the world. Nothing could get in or out. The aliens had cut off entire regions with technology humans couldn't understand. Commander Vrax personally led the occupation of Washington, D.C. He walked through the streets flanked by hegemony soldiers, each carrying weapons that made their Zentari toys look harmless. Vrax entered the White House without resistance. The guards' weapons had stopped working as soon as the aliens approached. "Your species spent thousands of years developing better ways to throw rocks at each other," Vrax said to the President as he took control of the Oval Office. "How primitive. True power comes from understanding the fabric of reality itself." The President stood her ground. "This won't stand. Humanity won't bow to conquerors." Vrax's three eyes blinked in that familiar pattern of amusement. "You already have. You just don't know it yet." Outside the city, Kevin Harris and Major Powell escaped in an old truck. The vehicle was so basic, no computer chips, no modern electronics, that the alien technology didn't affect it. "We need to find Colonel Russell," Samantha said as they drove through back roads. "He's been preparing for something like this for years." "Where is he?" Kevin asked, keeping his eyes on the road. "Last I heard, he set up a base in the Rocky Mountains. If anyone has a plan, it's him." As they drove west, they saw the alien occupation unfolding. Hegemony soldiers patrolled streets. Centauri ships hovered over cities. People looked scared, confused. 3 days later, they reached the mountains. After a careful approach through hidden trails, they found a camouflaged entrance in the side of a cliff. Armed guards met them, weapons ready. "We're here to see Colonel Russell," Samantha said, showing her military ID. The guards exchanged looks. One of them spoke into a radio. After a few moments, they were escorted inside. The base was larger than Kevin expected, a massive complex hidden inside the mountain. Hundreds of people worked at computers, examined alien technology, and prepared what looked like weapons. Colonel Jack Russell met them in a central command room. He was a tall man with a stern face and gray hair. "Major Powell," he said, "I've been expecting you. I'm glad you made it." "The aliens have taken over," Samantha said. "Our weapons are useless." Colonel Russell's face showed no surprise. "Not all of them," he said. "Come with me. There's something you need to see." Colonel Russell led Kevin and Samantha deeper into the mountain complex. They walked through long tunnels until they reached a large metal door, with guards on both sides. "This is deep shelter," Russell said. "What you're about to see has been kept secret from most of the world for over 80 years. The door opened slowly, revealing a massive room filled with scientists, military personnel, and strange equipment unlike anything Kevin had ever seen. "Welcome to Project Safeguard," Russell said. Humanity's insurance policy against alien threats. Dr. Mason and Dr. Chen were already there, working with other scientists around a large table covered in diagrams and alien tech. "How did you get here?" Kevin asked them. "We were already on our way when the invasion started," Olivia explained. "We've been working with Colonel Russell's team for months." Russell gathered everyone around a central display. Maps showed alien positions around the world. Red dots marked occupied cities. Blue dots showed resistance bases. "The Zentari and the hegemony think they know everything about us," Russell said. "They think they understand human technology and weapons. They're wrong." He pressed a button, and the wall slid open to reveal a hidden room. Inside were devices and weapons unlike anything in the regular military. They didn't look like guns or bombs. Some glowed with strange light. Others seemed to shift shape as Kevin watched them. Since the 1960s, Russell explained, governments around the world have secretly developed technologies that don't rely on conventional physics. We kept them hidden, not just from the public, but from most official records. Dr. Mason stepped forward. "We have 4 main categories of advanced technology that the aliens know nothing about." He pointed to different sections of the hidden room. First, cognitive warfare systems that target the neural patterns of sentient beings. Basically, weapons that affect the mind. Samantha frowned. "Like mind control." "More like confusion generators," Mason said. "They disrupt thought patterns, create hallucinations, make it impossible to focus." Mason moved to the next section. Second, nanite swarms that can take apart materials at the molecular level. Kevin looked at the small containers. They seemed to be filled with gray dust. Third, quantum entanglement communication that can't be intercepted or jammed. It doesn't use radio waves or any signal the aliens can detect. And fourth, Mason said, his voice getting quieter, biological agents designed to target specific DNA patterns. We can create viruses or bacteria that only affect Centauri biology, not humans. Kevin and Samantha stood in silence, trying to process what they were seeing. "Why keep this secret?" Kevin finally asked. "We could have used these against the aliens from the start." A man stepped forward from the back of the room. He wasn't wearing a uniform or a lab coat. He looked like an ordinary technician. "Because surprise is our greatest weapon," the man said. Russell nodded to him. "This is Ryan Cooper. He's one of our deep cover operatives." Ryan smiled slightly. "We've been monitoring space for potential threats since 1947. Project Safeguard was created for one purpose, to prepare for the day aliens came with bad intentions. We deliberately presented humanity as technologically inferior," Ryan continued. "We kept developing conventional weapons publicly, bigger bombs, faster planes, more powerful guns, while secretly working on entirely different technologies. The Zentari and the hegemony think they know what we're capable of," Russell added. "They've studied our public weapons, our military tactics. They have no idea what's really waiting for them." Samantha looked around the room, at the strange devices and the determined faces of the people working on them. "So what's the plan?" she asked. Russell smiled for the first time since they arrived. "We're going to take back Earth, and we're going to teach the aliens why it was a mistake to underestimate humans." He turned to a large screen showing a map of Chicago, where a Zentari command ship hovered above the city. "And we start tomorrow." The resistance plan began at dawn. Small teams left deep shelter, each carrying devices that looked nothing like traditional weapons. Colonel Russell stood in the command center, watching dots move across digital maps. "Team Alpha is in position near the Chicago command ship," a communications officer reported. "Team Beta has reached the alien ground base in Denver," another added. Russell nodded. "Begin Phase 1. Laura Daniels led Team Alpha. Before the invasion, she had been a neuropsychologist studying how the brain responds to different stimuli. Now, she carried a small device that looked like a metal sphere with glowing blue lines. "Remember," she told her team as they positioned themselves around Chicago, The aliens have never encountered cognitive warfare. They have no defenses against it. At exactly 7:00 a.m., Laura activated the device. The sphere hummed quietly, sending invisible waves through the air. These waves didn't harm humans, but they targeted the specific brain patterns of the Centauri. Inside the massive command ship hovering over Chicago, chaos erupted. Centauri crew members began seeing things that weren't there. Some heard voices, others couldn't remember basic commands. Something is wrong with the ship's environment systems, one Centauri officer reported, not realizing the problem was in his own mind, not the ship. Commander Vrax, who had been inspecting the Chicago operation, felt it too. His 3 eyes couldn't focus properly. He saw shadows moving where there should be none. "Run diagnostics on all systems," he ordered, his voice unsteady. Meanwhile, in Denver, Peter Grant led Team Beta. In civilian life, he had been an engineer specializing in micro-robotics. Now he carried containers of what looked like gray dust. "The nanites are primed," he told his team. "Release them near any alien equipment you find." The team members split up, each carrying a small container. They released the dust near alien vehicles, weapons, and communication devices. To the naked eye, nothing happened. But at the microscopic level, billions of tiny machines began their work. The nanites were simple by design. They had no electronic components that aliens could detect. They were mechanical, using basic chemistry to power themselves as they slowly began taking apart alien technology, molecule by molecule. Within hours, Centauri equipment began failing across Denver. Weapons stopped working. Vehicles broke down. Communication devices gave incorrect readings. The Centauri, unable to detect what was causing these failures, believed they were facing simple mechanical problems. They called for replacement equipment, not realizing the same fate awaited any new technology they brought in. At Deep Shelter, Dr. Mason monitored the alien communication channels using their quantum entanglement system. Unlike radio or other electromagnetic signals, quantum entangled particles communicated instantly regardless of distance, and the connection couldn't be detected or interrupted. "They're confused," Mason reported to Russell. "The Chicago command is requesting help from their fleet, but they can't explain what's happening." "Perfect," Russell said. "Begin Phase 3. As the Centauri struggled with equipment failures and inexplicable hallucinations, Colonel Russell led a small strike team toward Chicago. They wore special exoskeletons that masked their biological signatures, making them appear as machinery to alien sensors. Their target, Commander Vrax himself. The strike team moved through Chicago's streets, invisible to alien detection systems. When they encountered Centauri soldiers, the aliens didn't see humans. Their sensors showed only mechanical units, which they assumed were their own. Russell's team reached the Centauri ground base beneath the hovering command ship. Inside, Centauri officers were in disarray, struggling with the effects of Laura's cognitive disruptors. Commander Vrax was in the central command room, trying to establish contact with Admiral Zex and the Hegemony fleet. "Something is interfering with our neural functions," Vrax said into a communication device. "The humans may have hidden capabilities we didn't." He never finished the sentence. Russell's team burst into the room. Before Vrax or his guards could react, they fired darts containing a fast-acting sedative designed specifically for Centauri biology. Vrax collapsed. The human strike team quickly secured him and the command center. Russell activated his quantum communicator. Phase 3 complete. We have Vrax. In orbit, Admiral Zex received reports of the chaos unfolding below. For the first time, the Admiral felt something new. Uncertainty. Commander Vrax woke up in a plane room with white walls. He was seated in a chair designed to accommodate his 4 arms. Across from him sat Colonel Russell and Ambassador Garcia. "What is the meaning of this?" Vrax demanded. "Do you know what the Hegemony will do when they discover you've captured me?" Garcia leaned forward. "They already know." We made sure of it. On a screen on the wall, they showed Vrak's footage of his capture. The alien watched in disbelief as the humans moved through Centauri defenses as if they weren't there. Impossible, Vrak said. Our sensors would have detected you. Not if we didn't want to be detected, Russell replied. You see, Commander, we've known about aliens for much longer than you think. We detected possible signals decades ago and have been preparing ever since. Vrax's three eyes blinked rapidly. But your weapons, your technology, were exactly what we wanted you to see. Garcia finished for him. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, Admiral Zex was losing patience. Reports of equipment failures and confused crews came from every Centauri base on the planet. The command ship over Chicago no longer responded to communications, and now, the humans had sent a message claiming they had captured Commander Vrax. Enough of this, Zex declared to the Hegemony Fleet commanders. Begin orbital bombardment of major human cities. We will crush their resistance with overwhelming force. The massive Hegemony vessels moved into position above New York, London, Beijing, and other major cities. They charged their energy weapons, preparing to fire. In deep shelter, Dr. Olivia Chen watched the alien ships on her monitors. She turned to her team. They're doing exactly what we expected. Activate Project Eclipse. Around the world, what the aliens thought were simple communication satellites suddenly came to life. These satellites had been placed in orbit years before the Centauri arrived, disguised as ordinary Earth technology. As the Hegemony ships fired their energy weapons, the satellites generated powerful electromagnetic fields. These fields created artificial wormholes directly in the path of the alien energy beams. The result was immediate and devastating. The alien weapons fire entered the wormholes and emerged behind their own ships. Several Hegemony vessels were hit by their own energy beams, causing massive damage. Admiral Zex watched in shock as ships in the fleet reported critical failures. What just happened? The Admiral demanded. Our weapons fire. It somehow turned back on us. A Hegemony officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. At the same time, Major Powell led a team to the Centauri life support processing centers that had been established in major cities. These centers maintained the proper atmosphere mix for the aliens to breathe comfortably on Earth. Powell's team released specially engineered microorganisms into these systems. The microbes were harmless to humans, but targeted the specific biological makeup of the Centauri. Within hours, the aliens began experiencing breathing difficulties as their life support systems failed. Back in the White Room, Garcia showed Vrax live feeds of what was happening. You called us primitive because we still use physical weapons, Garcia said. You fail to understand that true advancement means recognizing when to move beyond them. Vrax watched as his forces fell into disarray around the world. We didn't abandon projectile weapons because we couldn't develop alternatives, Russell added. We kept them because they still work, while secretly developing technologies you never imagined we had. On screens, they showed Vrax more human technologies being deployed. Force fields protecting key cities from alien attacks, advanced drones that could penetrate Hegemony ship defenses, and energy weapons that matched anything the aliens possessed. How? Vrax asked, his voice quiet now. How did you hide all this? The same way prey animals hide their strengths from predators, Garcia answered. By appearing weaker than we are. It's a strategy Earth species have used for millions of years. We simply applied it on a global scale. Admiral Zex, facing a rapidly deteriorating situation, made an emergency call to the Hegemony High Command. For the first time in the Admiral's long career, Zex had to report a serious problem. The humans, Zex said, are not what we thought they were. 2 days after the failed orbital bombardment, Admiral Zex requested a meeting with Earth's leaders. The Hegemony fleet had pulled back to a safe distance, no longer threatening immediate destruction. Ambassador Garcia, now leading what remained of Earth's official government, agreed to meet on neutral ground. They chose a space station that humans had secretly built on the far side of the moon. another revelation that shocked the Zentari. The station was simple but elegant, with large windows showing the stars and the blue earth below. Garcia arrived with Colonel Russell, Major Powell, and Dr. Mason as his advisors. Admiral Zex came with 2 hegemony officers and a visibly humbled Commander Vrax. "We have underestimated your species," Admiral Zex began, all 6 eyes focused on Garcia. "This has never happened before in hegemony history." Garcia nodded but said nothing, waiting for the alien to continue. "We would like to understand how you achieved this deception," Zex said. "For research purposes." Russell smiled slightly. "Admiral, what you're really asking is whether there are other species in your hegemony who might have hidden capabilities too." The Admiral's red skin darkened slightly, the alien equivalent of a blush. The humans had guessed correctly. "Let us show you what we're truly capable of," Garcia said. He nodded to Dr. Mason, who activated a series of displays around the room. Each showed technologies that the Zentari had never seen before. Consciousness transfer systems that could move a human mind from one body to another, matter-energy conversion technology that could create objects from pure energy, and dimensional manipulation devices that could fold space itself. "We developed all of these while maintaining our primitive facade," Mason explained. "We studied our own history and saw a pattern. Whenever a technologically advanced human civilization met a less developed one, the less advanced group was usually conquered or destroyed. So we decided," Garcia continued, "that if we ever met aliens, we would appear less developed than we truly were." Admiral Zex was silent for a long moment. Then the alien did something unexpected. It laughed, a strange whistling sound. "Brilliant," Zex said. "Absolutely brilliant. In 10,000 years of hegemony expansion, no species has ever thought to hide their true capabilities. All tried to show their best technology, hoping to impress us. And they were conquered for it," Russell said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," Zex admitted. "Power recognizes power. Those who appeared weak became subjects. It is the way of the universe." "Not anymore," Powell said firmly. "Not for Earth." The meeting continued for hours as both sides discussed their next steps. By the end, a new agreement had been reached. The hegemony would withdraw from Earth. Instead of conquest, they would offer a true alliance, equal partners in galactic affairs. 1 week later, Kevin Harris and Ryan Cooper stood on the roof of the rebuilt Pentagon, watching the last hegemony ships leave Earth's atmosphere. "They really thought they knew us," Kevin said, shaking his head. "They study our weapons, our wars, our military. They never understood that wasn't the true measure of our advancement." Ryan nodded. "They thought our weapons defined us. They never realized our greatest weapon was how we think." Across the galaxy, news spread quickly. Earth, a planet the hegemony had expected to easily conquer, had not only resisted but forced a retreat. Other species under hegemony rule took notice. Some began to whisper of resistance, inspired by the humans. In the hegemony language, the word they had used for primitive took on a new meaning. It became slang for deceptively advanced, or hiding great power. 6 months later, Earth officially joined the galactic community. Human diplomats and scientists traveled to alien worlds. Alien representatives came to Earth. Both sides had much to learn from each other. Commander Vrax, now serving as the Zentari ambassador to Earth, stood beside Ambassador Garcia at the opening of the first galactic embassy in New York. "I still don't understand how your people maintained the deception for so long," Vrax said. "Didn't anyone want to show off your true capabilities? To prove your advancement?" Garcia smiled. "That's the final lesson we learned from our history, Commander. True advancement isn't about having the most powerful weapons. It's about knowing when not to use them."